Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Steve Ray, and today we're going to be talking about understanding the wine price structure model for the U.S. market. A little bit about us and me, Bevology. We specialize in helping export wine and spirit brands enter and grow in the U.S. market. We have a proprietary program called Get U.S. Market Ready. Uh, what we do is four basic things: provide guidance navigating the three-tier system, help with importer distributor selection. Uh, Third is marketing strategy and execution, both consumer advertising, public relations, and social media, as well as in our area of specialization is trade PR and marketing. And then fourth is sales and distributor management on the ground here in the U.S. And then also we hold a national import license as Bevology Imports. And I mention that only because it gives us a much more practical insight in a lot of the subjects that we consult with our clients on. Specifically about me, I've been in the business for 25 years. I started with a company called Hubline, which is now called Diageo. Owned my own marketing company in partnership called Brand Action Team, and for the last 3 years focused on helping new brands and brand development with Bevology. We work with individual wineries, small to large, as well as big multinational companies such as Pernod Ricard. Do a lot of work with regional and country trade promotion organizations from countries all over the world. We do a lot of work with the trade, warehouses, online tools, as well as market research. And I myself am a writer and speaker and lecturer. I've written for Meiningers, speak at Vinexpo, Vinitaly, Wine to Wine, London Wine Fair, and so on. I also give a annual lecture at the Bologna Business School. So enough about me and us. Let's cut into the. Here's a shortcut for those of you who don't want to sit and listen to the whole thing, although I do recommend that you do that. Rule of thumb: if you want to figure out what the retail shelf price is going to be, multiply your ex seller price in U.S. dollars by 3.5 to 4, and you'll get pretty close. Another way of getting to the same solution is 2 times the distributor laid-in cost. That's the simple solution, but we don't want to leave pennies on the table. And so what we're going to look at here is we'll show you the spreadsheet in a bit, but I wanted to really focus on and clarify in some of the words that we'll be using to make sure that we're dealing with precise and common understandings. So the first thing I want to mention is that the workshop is a simplified model, and it's a point of reference only. It's not the tool itself that you're going to use because it's simplified. But factors incorporated include it's all based on a 12-bottle, 9-liter case. And many people from other countries talk in terms of bottles. In the U.S., we speak in terms of cases. And if you want to do better results in the U.S. Speak in the language that we speak, and it's not just English; it's 9-liter cases. The taxes that I'm basically talking about is on 14% or less alcohol by volume still wines. We will be talking a little bit about above 14.5% in sparkling wines and show you where some of those numbers are, but the sample is still wines under 14%. We're going to be talking about the frontline price, meaning no multiple case discounts, no price supports, incentives, in-store tastings, wine by the glass programs, or other marketing support from the producer, the importer, or the wholesaler. That doesn't mean that those things don't need to be done or are not important. They absolutely are. We're just saying in order to understand the price structure model, we're leaving all of those complicating issues out. And lastly, on this particular slide, it applies to open states only. As you probably are aware, control states have their own pricing system, and it varies from one to another. So talking about terms and terminology. In the U.S., we use the terms distributor and wholesaler synonymously. They mean the same thing to us. But that is not the case with the words importer and distributor. I know many people I speak to in Europe sometimes use those interchangeably, but in the U.S. they are distinctly different. The importer brings the brand into the United States. That's a national license, and the distributor buys it from the importer or supplier and then in turn sells it and delivers it to the retailer, and those are state licenses. So the functions are two different ones. Often a company may have both an import and distribution function under the same name, but they're operating as separate operating companies. When we talk about FOB, it's a term that's used a lot, but not with much precision, and we think that's really important. As you probably know, it means free on board or freight on board. But in practice, it simply means the price that is being charged from one entity to another. So from the supplier to the importer, or from the importer to distributor. It's the point at which ownership and liability changes to the buyer. What's important, you'll find distributors talking about FOBs, you'll find importers talking about FOBs, and sometimes even retailers using the phrase, but not everybody is talking about your ex-seller price at the winery. So it's very important that when you use the term FOB, that you discuss with whoever you're talking to, what do you precisely mean by that? If we mean ex-seller at the dock, that's one thing. If it means on the ship in the port of debarkation, does it include in-country transport from winery to point of debarkation? Third point there is the laid-in cost is the fully loaded cost to the distributor before markup. You'll see where that comes into play in the spreadsheet that we'll show you. Oh, and by the way, the spreadsheet that I'm going to show you in this presentation only shows it's a PowerPoint, so it's not an active spreadsheet. If you write me, and my contact information is at the end of the presentation, I can send you a PDF of this presentation as well as a copy of the Excel sheet that I'll be showing you in a moment. And the last point here is that the wholesale price that we're talking about is the front line or undiscounted price charged to the retailer by the wholesaler. Again, we're trying to keep it simple. Continuing on, when we say FET, we mean federal excise tax. That's a basic import tax. This basic tax the federal government charges on alcohol. That's different from, similar to, but different from duty, which is a tax on imported products. And then on top of that, many states impose their own excise tax, which is a tax on the alcohol component. And I'm going to show you a chart and give you a chart which shows you what the actual state excise tax is for all 50 states and DC and Montgomery County. We also are not including here a bunch of things, but it's important that you understand what a DA, SPA, FSA, RIP, and so on are. In each state, they may have a different jargon that they use. RIPS, for example, is used only in New Jersey or principally in New Jersey. But it's important that you understand what these terms mean and how they function and how they impact price structures and who it benefits. And a case in point is the difference between a purchase allowance and a depletion allowance. They kind of sound the same thing. It's an allowance. In actuality, purchase allowance is giving a discount when somebody purchases the product, obviously, and depletion is when they sell it. We prefer to structure things in terms of depletion allowances because that's the behavior, that's the result we're most interested in. So definitions are kind of important. As I said, it applies to open states only, and this is a map of the U.S. Control and open states. The open states are in gray, control states are in blue, and control in our world means monopoly states similar to the Scandex. Okay, let's just jump right into this, and let's take the mystery out of margin versus markup. We find that there's a lot of misuse of these terms, and I make the mistake just like other people do when I'm talking about markup and I mean margin. And why is that significant? Well, as this cartoon shows, it reads, unfortunately, our margin of error turned out to be the profit margin. Well, we don't want that to happen to you or to anybody. So understanding precisely what's going on here is important. That also recognizing that margin and markup really are two sides of the same coin but different. Okay, so what are they? Let's define them. Markup is defined as the difference between gross profit, GP, as you might hear people here calling it, and cost. It can be expressed as an absolute number or as a percentage. And it's most useful for figuring out how much money you made. Makes sense, right? Margin is kind of the other side. It's defined as sales minus the cost of goods sold. And to express it in percentage terms, divide gross profit by revenue, multiply by 100. And it's most useful for helping ensure that a sale actually is generating a profit. And here's maybe a simpler way of doing it. The formula. Markup is price minus cost divided by cost. Margin is price minus cost divided by price. And you can see the relationship here in this particular case. 100% markup is equal to 50% margin. And that's, you can see this relationship right here on a simplified chart. And it's I would advise you to go online and you'll find lots of charts like this that you can use as cheat sheets and keep on your desk. This one also includes the multiplier factor. Okay, so hopefully everybody understands that or understood it before and is clear on it now. Let's move on to the excise tax. As I said, there's two levels. One is federal excise taxes, and they come in three different flavors. FET for still wines less than or equal to 14% alcohol by volume. FET still wine greater than 14.5% alcohol by volume. And then sparkling wine. And as you can see, it's initially in the TTB regulations, it's set up as FET dollars per gallon. We convert that to a 9-liter case, and if you wanted to, you can convert it to a bottle. And in the chart I'm going to show you, or the worksheet we're going to go in, we show both cases and bottles. But again, I urge you to speak in terms of cases. Okay, that's the federal taxes. What about the state taxes? A little more complicated. You can see 5 columns here. Okay, the first column is the state. The second one is the tax, state excise tax, expressed as dollars per gallon. It's converted to dollars per 9-liter case in the adjacent column to the right. And then where a state has a different or separate excise tax, it's expressed there as dollars per gallon and then again converted to 9-liter case. If you wanted to divide it into bottles, you would just take that number under per 9-liter case and divide by 12. And you can see it varies all over the place. I mean, you've got Louisiana, which is down, as you can see, $1.59, and California is only 30 cents per gallon, or 71 cents compared to 378 on a per case basis. That's a huge difference, and it means that the numbers are going to be different when you're calculating prices and margins, and that's why it's important to not, as we say, leave any pennies on the table. Okay, so let's cut to the chase, and this is the Excel spreadsheet that I mentioned earlier, and as I said, this is not an active spreadsheet in the PowerPoint version that I'm presenting to you now, so I'm going to talk through it. The middle section where you see it says per 9-liter case, obviously that's per 9-liter case, and on the right we have per 750 ml bottle. So we start in the upper-ish right-hand column, and you can see we have €3.50 as the ex-seller price. The cells that I put in green are cells that you'll be able to change in the Excel spreadsheet I send you. The cells in white are not locked. I left that on purpose because some people may want to play with those formulas as well. But basically they show the result of a calculation. So in this particular case, €3.50 converted to US dollars at a $1.15 exchange rate, or I'm sorry, 1.15 euros to the dollar. Equals 403 per bottle USD, and that converts to $48.30 on a per case basis. Okay, so moving down further, and we're going to focus on the 9-liter case. The way this is structured is the issue, or where the change takes place, is listed in the left-hand column. The variable obviously is a defined number, and then we show you the price of that and then the plus where they get added. And so the middle line, a middle column of price shows you your net cost. So we start with $48.30. To that we add what I would call other costs, and we're going to show you in the next slide what are the components of that $6.95 that we threw in there. Now that's going to vary depending on a whole lot of things, like where you're shipping from. If you're shipping from Australia, your ocean freight costs are going to be significantly higher than if you're shipping from Austria, for example, or Puerto Rico or Bermuda. And then you see there the federal excise tax, and we're assuming it's less than or equal to 14% alcohol by volume. The number would be different, as I said before, if it was higher than 14.5% or it were still wines. And you add 48.30. Yet to that you add 695 and 254, and it yields 57.79. That's what we call the landed cost or the delivered cost to the importer. To that, the distributor is going to add a markup. In this particular case, we use 35%. I think that's a reasonable middle ground. Sometimes you'll see 40, sometimes you'll see more. It kind of depends on who the importer is, what kind of services they're providing for you, and how their business is structured. In any case, using the 35% importer's markup in this example totals $20.23 on the landed cost of 57.79. You add those two together, 20 and 57, and you get 78.02. And that is the FOB to the distributor. So when a distributor is talking to you about FOB, he's talking to you about the $78 figure, not the $48.30 figure. That's the reason why I stress the importance of making sure you're using the same terminology for FOB. To that, you would add inland freight. The product comes over on the ship, obviously goes through customs. At customs, it gets picked up by a truck. Truck brings it to a storage warehouse. Oftentimes, it's going to be Western Carriers, which is in New Jersey, and we use that as an example here. And we added $1.50 as an average, because if you're shipping it to a warehouse on the West Coast, it's going to be significantly higher than if it's just going from New York to New Jersey. So a good average there is $1.50. Again, we're using this as an example. Second thing that gets added after the FOB to the distributor is the state excise tax, and in this case we're using New York as an example, which is 71 cents, and each state has its own number, and that gives you what we call the laid-in cost to the distributor, laid-in cost. And if you remember in the beginning, I said if you take the laid-in cost per bottle and double it, that's about what the retail price will be. So let's look all the way over there. An 80.23 case landed cost equals 669 bottle landed cost. If you double that, that's roughly $14-15, right? And if you look all the way down at the bottom, that's cheating. $14.54 is the actual calculation. So the twice laid-in cost is a pretty good rule of thumb. In any case, to that we add a markup. This is the distributor's markup. It can range anywhere, well, it could be anything, but generally between 28 and 35. We put in 45% here because you'll probably start with something that high, but to that you would be deducting the distributor's contributions in terms of samples, marketing costs, all kinds of other things like that. So a 45% starting markup may work out to a melded or net markup of something like 35% or 30%. But again, this is for an example. So we've taken the 45% markup. That's $36.10. Added it to 80.23. That gets us $116.33, and that's the wholesale or front line price to the retailer. And the retailer, of course, is going to add their markup on top of that. We're using 50% markup, which we said was a 33% margin on the other side. That adds 58.16 and gives you a total retail price per case of $174.49, and converted to bottles, that's $14.54. So that's why a €350 ex-seller price yields a $15 or $14.99 would be the case here, because again, I said I don't want to leave pennies on the table. If you gave a retailer this chart, he would mark that product up to $14.99, and somebody's getting another 55 cents or 45 cents, and don't leave that. I would change some of the numbers up higher to get to a $0.99 shelf price. Okay, I said earlier that this the red boxes you see on the left, the ocean freight insurance duty and so forth, I broke that out, as you can see in the box in the bottom right hand corner, each line. there are other things that could be in there, PPI, peer pickup. Generally, it's going to run roughly $7. That's why this is a good example. But if you wanted to use actual numbers, obviously that would be better. Again, this formula allows you to do that. It'll calculate your other costs like this into the total of 695 and place that number into the main spreadsheet. So it works its way through. Uh, so pretty handy tool. Again, it's just kind of a rule of thumb. It doesn't include a lot of the complications which come into play and the jargon that goes along with it. But I think it's something that's very useful for you uh, in understanding how a 350 euro Acceler price explodes up to $15. But it doesn't answer the question, why is everybody else making more money on a supplier's product than the supplier? And that's simply a question I can't answer. A couple of other points I wanted to make. One is there's a great tool out there called Wine Searcher, and I should be honest and say they're a client of ours. They'd be a great site even if they weren't a client of ours, but we think the tool is great because it's a wonderful tool for doing a pricing audit without having to send salespeople out on the street to go store by store and check prices. So I use this as an example here. Trinidad Rose, a typical Bordeaux that you're going to find in many places, and I look for prices only in Connecticut. Oh, and by the way, in this case, I'm using the pro version of Wine Searcher. It costs $49 a year. Highly recommend you get it because it's going to allow you to look up a lot of data like this. So when we did it, it gives you the results in one column. I'm taking just the first part of that first column of that column and putting it in two just so you can see the range. And you can see it ranges from a low of $15.99 at International Wine Shop to a high on this chart of $22.99 at Total Wine and More in Norwalk, Connecticut. In actuality, the prices go up. You may see it even up to $29.99 or even higher. What this helps you do is to kind of give you a picture or a good way to eyeball a mean or a median price. And I would look at something like this and say, okay, so the MSRP that they're probably working with undiscounted is probably going to be around $22.99, maybe $23.99, and the guys who are buying multi-case deals are able to sell it at $19.99. That's kind of how it works. Again, this is just one example of how to do a price audit. It's going to be different in every market, and in cases like New York City is going to be different from the rest of New York State, but generally the U.S. operates on a state-by-state basis when we talk about markets. Last point I want to reinforce is please keep in mind this is a simplified pro forma only. This is not an actual price structure. It's to show you how the process works. It may, in fact, it will vary by wholesaler and state. Like I was saying, they use the term RIPS in New Jersey, and that's published literally because it's a price posting state, as is New York. But in New York, we don't use the term RIPS at all, and there'll be people who wouldn't even be familiar with it. And the third point, last one here, is it doesn't include what I said before was a melded cost calculator. And that's what you will really be working with, because not all your product is going to be sold at its frontline one case undiscounted price. You're probably going to have multi-case deals. And melded simply means the net total takeaway from that after all the discounts and multiples have been applied. So you'll hear the term melded cost. And that's what the wholesaler and retailer, for that matter, are going to be looking at, principally the wholesaler, to figure out if they're making money, margin and markup, in the whole process. The interesting thing, I think, is when we talk to really anybody in the trade, they can look at that. You give them an Excel or price structure, and they do all the calculations in their head and go immediately to a more accurate solution than you'd be able to do with an Excel spreadsheet and formulas. That's because they've been working with it their whole professional life. We don't expect that all of our customers get to that level of proficiency. But if you're not, it really helps to have somebody with you who knows all this stuff cold and can have a calculation and not be misled by imprecision in terms of definition of terms or the way things happen to work in this particular state or this particular distributor. So I've tried to keep it short. I think it's only been about 25 minutes. What I would suggest is engage with me. My contact information is all here. LinkedIn, which would be great. Just reach out to me at Steve Ray, Facebook, Bevology Inc. My address is there for the New York office. We also work out of an office in Connecticut. I write a blog called Opinions, and you can find that on bevologyinc.com. That's where it lives. And as I said, if you want a PDF of this presentation, email me at steve@bevologyinc.com. I'd be happy to send you the PDF as well as the Proforma Excel worksheet. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. I hope you found it informative and most importantly helpful. And if we can be of any help to you in your work in the U.S., please give us a call. Thank you again. Bye-bye.